Today we're going to be taking a look at how to create this fake sunrise effect using the brand new Relight effect in Davinci Resolve 18.5. Let's get started. Okay, couple quick things before we begin. First, the Relight effect is only available in Davinci Resolve Studio. So if you're still on the free version of Davinci Resolve, stick around, watch the video, because I guarantee you're going to want to click the link in the description and get yourself a studio license afterwards, because it's really that good. Second, please remember Davinci Resolve 18.5 is still in beta, which means you may come across some issues, especially if you're on a lower spec computer. You may get crashes, you may get your GPU memory full. So please be patient. The full release will come out at some point, and hopefully all of those things will be fixed. But for now, we'll get through it together. Third, I know that this is not my normal setup. Sorry if it threw you for a loop. I'm dealing with some multicam stuff. I've got my Pocket 6K here. I've got my Sony ZV-1 right here. I've got my screen recording going. I'm working on a review for another NLE with a brand new multicam thing, and it's pretty awesome. So I needed some footage to work with. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video. In the meantime, let's jump into Davinci Resolve. All right, we're in the color page, and most of the tutorials that you're gonna see on Relight is gonna show you relighting a person, because that's probably the most traditional way that you're going to be working with Relight. But we're actually gonna use it to relight this scene right here, which is, I think, Venice. I don't know. I got this footage from Artlist. It's where I get all of my stock footage and music and sound effects. They're linked below if you want to check them out. I highly suggest you do. They're awesome. Anyway, the first thing that we need to do is add 2 serial nodes to our node tree. So I'm going to select my first serial node here. I'm going to hit Alt-S, and then I'm going to hit Alt-S again, and that is going to add 2 new serial nodes here. We're going to label them just to be, safe and know exactly what we're working with here. We're going to call this surface map, and we will call this one Relight. All right, next thing that we want to do is add the Relight effect to both our surface map and our Relight node. So let's select first our surface map node. We're going to come into our effects library. If you don't see your effects library, you can turn it on and off by clicking on effects right here. And if you don't see this search bar right here, you can turn that on and off by selecting this magnifying glass. So we're going to have our search bar on, we're going to search for Relight, and we're going to take our Relight effect and we're going to put it on our surface map node, and then we're going to put it on our Relight node. Now, everything looks super weird right now. Don't worry, we're going to fix that. The first thing we need to do, though, is reconnect a couple things. We're going to need to grab our surface map node. We're going to bring it down here. We're going to break the connection between surface map and Relight. And then we're going to connect the output of our very first node with the first input, this top green triangle of our Relight node. Then we're going to take the output of our surface map node and we're going to put it into the second input, the second green arrow on our Relight node. Next thing we're going to do is select our surface map node, come into our inspector, and we're going to select output surface map. And if I select our surface map node and I hit Shift H on my keyboard to turn on highlights, you'll see that we've essentially created a normal map for our image. A normal map, if you're not used to working with 3D, is basically just a map of all the different textures and all the depth and all the exposures of our image. That is what we've created here. This is going to inform our Relight node how the light is going to interact with our scene. So we'll turn highlights off by hitting Shift H on our keyboard again. We'll select our Relight node, and you'll see everything here looks super weird, and that is because we have our relighting map preview turned on. And when this is on, we can see how our light is going to interact with our scene. So if we come down here, we can drag this around and you can see how the light will interact with different parts of our scene. The problem is right now, we're actually not using our surface map to inform our Relight node. In order to change that, we're gonna come over to our inspector. we're going to go to Surface Map, hit that drop-down box, and choose Use Input To. And basically what that's doing now is saying, hey, Davinci Resolve, use this surface map as a guide to how the light is going to interact with our relight node. And real quick, we're going to take a look at the different types of light we can use. This one right here is our point source. You can think of this like an exposed light bulb. You've got a light source and the light is coming out of it in all directions. Other than that, we've got our directional light, which is really, really hard to explain, but I'll do my best. It's basically light pointing at our subject. It's pointing in the same direction, but coming from different directions, if that makes sense. It's really, really hard to explain what directional light does. It does create some pretty cool effects. We're not going to worry about that one today. We're actually going to be using point source, but real quick, let's click on Spotlight and take a look at that. Spotlight is pretty easy to understand. It's just like a spotlight. You choose where the light is shining to, and you choose what direction it's shining from. And if we come into our inspector, you'll see a whole bunch of settings here, like brightness and reach and contrast. You've got things like glossiness and specularity and shadow softness and just all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to go into them now. There's a bunch of really good tutorials that go into a deeper dive of these settings. I will have some linked below to make sure you check them out so you can get a really good grasp on what this does. The important thing to know here is that if you play around with these settings, you will change the way that the light looks. You can change your beam angle, your edge hardness. You can do a whole bunch of stuff here. And all of these settings are able to be keyframed, which means we can actually create some really cool effects here, like a fake sunrise. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to switch back to point source. We're going to turn off our relighting map preview. And now we're back to seeing our original image. And we're going to move our point source slightly out of frame. The other thing to keep in mind is that this relight effect doesn't actually create the light. What it creates essentially is a mask. It is basically saying, hey, this is where we want the light to be. We want it to be here, but not here. But we haven't actually created the light. We're going to do that using the color wheels. So let's first create our light here. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase our gamma and our gain. And because we're creating a sunlight, we're also going to raise the temperature. And remember what I said, we can play around with the reach and the contrast. And really now what we want to play around with are our brightness and our reach. So if we bring our playhead back to the beginning of our clip, we can bring our brightness down and our reach down. And we'll set a keyframe on both of those in the inspector. And we'll come almost to the end, maybe right about there. And we'll bring our brightness up and our reach up. And now, if we come back to the beginning and we play that back, you'll see we're creating a really cool looking fake sunrise. And the light is interacting correctly with the rest of the image. It's keeping in mind all the texture and the depth and the shadows, and it's looking really, really cool. And for an added touch, let's just take it one step further. I'm going to add a new serial node by hitting Alt-S on my keyboard. Let's clear our search bar, and we're gonna look for rays. Full disclosure, I showed this effect to my friend Jake Whip the other day, and he actually suggested adding the rays in, and yeah, it looks really cool. So let's drag our light rays effect onto our node here. And again, we can come back to the point where our sunrise is completely in effect, just like that. And here we can play around with our light rays. We can go maybe add an angle. We can choose the angle here, lengthen them a little bit. that, soften them, play around with our source threshold a little bit. And again, if we play that back, we've got a really cool fake looking well, it's not a fake, it's a real looking sunrise, but it's a fake sunrise. And that's just one of the really cool effects you can do with that relight effect. You can also do things like make a swinging light above a stage or above a weird, creepy park thing like I did here. And even though we didn't do this in Fusion, Relight is available in Fusion. So that just unlocks a whole bunch of other options. You know what else is available in Fusion? The brand new multi-merge node. If you want to learn more about that, click here. And until next time, don't forget to go out and make stuff. Thanks for watching.